how does the crossover work, and how does it look, out on the range, and what are the things you're bringing to the range that apply to the mat room or to the gym, and vice versa? Like how is that? What does that language look like? What does that discourse look like? What does it sound like? What can you tell me?
Yeah, it's a good question. So to be clear, we did a lot of work with the DT program. That is a well-oiled machine at this point. The firearms implementation to that is still in the, I would say, beginning to middle phases of that. It hasn't been fully oiled up yet, but it's in the process. But what I'm seeing with that is, and I'll say this first, is I tell all the recruits in the academy, it's like you need a set of hard skills as a cop. And like Pranka always talks about like the hard skills being the operating system just running in the background. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a really good analogy. But the hard skills as a cop are multifaceted. And I describe it as a pyramid. And at the bottom, the base of the pyramid is fitness. Like you need to be fit, because without that, none of the other things are good. So fitness is the bottom. And then right above that is talking, because you spend majority of your time talking to people. You got to be able to talk to an 80-year-old lady and a dude who's been living on the street and a gangbanger and a multi different types of people. And you got to be able to talk to them with respect. You got to be able to sell them, hey, if I could talk you into handcuffs, that's always an easy option, right? Mm-hmm. So you got to be convincing. And then above talking, we have fighting. Because if the talk doesn't go well, you got to be able to fight. You got to be able to control people. You got to be able to take people into custody, and you got to be able to protect yourself. And then above that is shooting, right? Shooting is a skill that you need to be proficient at. And then the very tip top of the pyramid is immediate medical aid. You got to be able to save your own life and a buddy's life, or an innocent person from trauma like gunshots or stabbings or things that people see on the street often. And if you have those hard skills, what you'll see in people that have them is their level of confidence goes up. And they know which problem requires which solution. So they know like this is a talking problem, but I'm maintaining conversation outside the reactionary gap, because I know through fighting that if I get too close, this can be a problem. Or I'm not gonna write on my notebook with my head down like this because I know I can get punched. All things like that. Or they know, hey, this guy's 20 yards away. That's a shooting problem. So I don't need to run up to him because I have the basic hard skills that can guide my tactical decisions in the moment. And so coming back to your question about the firearms, it's the firearms that we're trying to do on the range is a lot of the stuff that you've been seeing, focusing on like the competition aspect of shooting. That's my goal to try and bring here. And the reason why is, for years in law enforcement, you'd go on the range and it's like, all right, 6 rounds from the 25-yard line, you got 50 seconds on a giant target. Mm-hmm. There's no measure of skill there. There's no way to you get all 6 hits in, but it's all over the place in a very long amount of time. The data is so broad. There's no way to tell like what you did wrong, what mistakes you made, how to improve. And then we give that same cop a sim gun and we put them in a scenario and they're shooting as fast as they can. They're missing everything and it's not translating. So when we're seeing people that have a competition style of training in their shooting, we're seeing that directly translate to simunition scenarios and drills. And so it's like, well, okay, if we're seeing that happen and we see body cameras of officer-involved shootings and what is happening, how the officers are reacting under stress. Force Science has done a ton of research on this. You see a lot of similarities in the training methodologies and modalities through competition-style shooting. So the biggest part about that is we're taking the shooters and we're trying to build a proficient foundation that translates to simunitions and that translates to combatives, which gives them an understanding of what is a gun problem, what could be a gun problem, and how to solve a gun problem, right? And like Craig's class, which I'm sure you're familiar with, ShivWorks.
Yep.
He does a lot of the in-fight weapons access and entanglements with weapons and stuff like that. And, people pull out their pistol at too close of a range and it becomes a retention problem. And having the understanding of like really know how the gun works, what your capabilities are with it are going to determine what is a gun problem, what isn't. And so that's what I'm trying to bring here. It's in the works and it's moving along, but it's another battle.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. I mean, you're dropping some pretty heavy names there, just in terms of your own influences and how they've influenced others. I find, it interesting. These are folks that are outside of law enforcement, right? They've had law enforcement. Some have had Matt's longtime military, but obviously Craig, longtime law enforcement, and they're bringing this stuff back based on those experiences, based on things that they've been through and seen and done, and to basically come over the top of everything you just said. And I wonder why that's so. I wonder why, whether it's administration or whoever, without labeling anybody, why the resistance to onboarding things that are so much more practical like that, and up to and including the competition style shooting. And I know there's ego here, and I know there's inadequacy here. And I guess what I'm always trying to put my finger on is that really all it is? Is that really all it is? Because if that's all it is, then that, to me, that's sort of an easy problem to fix. And I don't mean that I don't mean that disrespectfully. I'm just looking at it going, man, is that all we're dealing with? We're just dealing with somebody's feelings here, right? Because if that's all we're dealing with, then let's just be real about your feelings, right? And let's talk about those. But is it something bigger, man? I mean, are there evil forces out there that's like, no, we just don't want our officers to have these tools and skills because it will just make them way too dangerous or way too effective on the street, and that's just going to be bad for everybody. And again, it's sort of tongue in cheek, but I'm asking because it's so hard for me to fathom that this stuff isn't being like, yeah, that's what we need to be doing. Like, it's look at that body cam and look at that one and look at that one and look at the other 50 of them. And then look at this training scenario, right? Or look at this. You don't have to look at it for very long to go, that just seems like the right thing to do. So like, I'm asking an honest question. Like, what is it? Why the resistance to this? Why isn't every law enforcement agency out there, and I know you can't speak for everybody, and clearly yours is doing a much better job than probably a lot, but why aren't people just going, you know what? That is the right thing to do, and we need to put that in front of our people, and we need to figure out a way to do that. But why?
Oh, man, that's like the age-old question. I don't have an answer for certain. I could give you my thoughts. I think, number one, on an individual level, individual cop, and this might sound harsh, but, cops in our area make a lot of money. And a lot of money without even needing a college degree in most times. And I think most of them don't like doing hard things. Most of them don't like going into a room and being the new guy. They like the seniority. They like the seeing their name at the top of the list, getting first pick at stuff, being treated better than other people just because they've been at a place longer than others. And the culture doesn't support a meritocracy and performance. It supports time and grade, time and service, and that's kind of it. I don't think they like doing hard things. That's one aspect at an individual level. And that's a culture issue, right? And then moving up the ladder back to your thing about the administrations perpetuate that because they're not rewarding high performers. Usually the high performers are the ones getting written up. They're the ones that do something that the citizens are thankful for, but maybe was in a gray area of a policy and they get in trouble. They're the go-getters out there. So, and if you're a go-getter, you gamble enough, you're gonna, make a mistake every once in a while. And those guys tend to have that happen more often because they're doing more. And as opposed to the guy who sits in the parking lot and guards it all day to make sure nobody comes and does bad stuff in the parking lot, there's people that do that for 8 hours and they never get a bad mark on their record. And the admin might look at that and be like, oh, look, this guy's never been in trouble. So I think that kind of plays a part in it. And then you get up to the top, and the top is always worried about that magical word called liability. And the liability thing, I think, is just a thrown out word for I'm scared to make a decision. Because if I make a decision, it's on me if something happens.